Welcome back, everyone. My name is Braden Cruz. I'm your host for Marketing for the Small Business Podcast. And today I've got a very exciting episode. We're going to be talking about jobs and drones. A lot of different topics to cover. I've been flying for, I think we're going on 2.5 years. I've got my guest here, my colleague, Devin Cruz. He's also a fellow drone pilot licensed by the FAA. And we've been flying together on various jobs, different missions, as we like to call them, for the last several years. Our special guest today is Travis Michael from Trav Media. How are you today, Travis?
Good. Great to be here, fellas. I'm excited to talk some shop about some drones. So let's get it.
Yeah, I am as well. So, man, it's so important. Everyone thinks it's so easy that you can just go buy a drone at Best Buy and just start flying, right? And it's so important. I think step one, find a drone, go ahead and buy it, go get licensed, and then start flying. So making sure that you're licensed, step one. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're gonna fly, don't ask me. I'm not a pilot. These two are the pilots over here. I'm more on the drone business side of things. So I'm out there. I understand the engineering and how things are working, but these guys make it work. So
we're the actual guys that in the air, huh?
That's us.
Yeah, that's who.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So I know that, and maybe you can tell us more about it, but to my understanding, I was talking to someone about this the other day, there's like the business side of it where if you're getting paid for flying the drone and you're out on the site, right, where you're working with someone, you're getting paid for that, then you definitely want to be insured and have that, have your license. But on the contrary to that, if it's something where it's more recreational use, do you still need your license? I don't think you do. I think it's something where if you're using it for recreational use for yourself, it's for your enjoyment, you don't necessarily need it.
So the quick answer to that is maybe. So it actually goes by height. It actually goes by height, right? So if you're staying under FAA regulated territory, right? So like, if you're, the tree in your backyard is not regulated by FAA guidelines, right?
Right.
Like, because there's no
Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, and then I think Class A and Class B, you're like not allowed. But yeah, I got you.
I believe that it's like anything over like 100 feet, like, or anything over 200 feet or whatever can be regulated. Anything 100 feet or higher can be regulated by the FAA. So like if you were to try to fly near an airport, well, within like the first mile or two, it's an absolute no, unless you get ATC authorization, right? But going back to like the recreational thing, I think if I remember correctly, it's Part 107 is the commercial one. Right. But then the recreational one is, I think like Part 61 or Part 67. I think it's Part 61. So like basically you still want to go through the whole training course and like be educated on where you can fly, where you can't fly. Like you can't go fly at federal parks unless you have written permission. Right. Right. But yeah, so either way, I think it's important to making sure that before you just start taking off and flying, you have that license. And so the FAA has, a ridiculous amount of resources on their website with all this kind of stuff. And it is an actual license. Like they give you it says pilot license on it. It makes you feel all fancy, like, yeah. And then also like making sure that you're insured too. Like if that drone just falls out of the sky, lands on a vehicle and that vehicle wrecks and someone dies from it, like you need that liability insurance, making sure that in the act of God or something crazy happens, you got your butt covered.
So I have a question. So do you need a pilot's license to have a jetpack?
Ooh, that's a good question, right? So like, are you talking about like the ones to where we've seen on social media where they put on the jetpack and they go fly around? Oh no. Well, I wouldn't assume so. So again, like there's that height regulation there too. Yeah. So like if you're going so high up into the air, then yeah, like you're going to be regulated somehow, right? Because there's every level, everywhere above 100 feet is somewhat regulated by the FAA, right? So if it's something like for example, like towers, right? Yeah. Towers still have to go through the whole process of making sure that they are abiding by the FAA rules with the lights and things like that that are up there on top of the towers, which follows into like one of the conversations that we're probably going to talk about with tower inspection, some other things that these cool drones can do, right? Like some of the Mavics that I have behind me, these Mavic Pro 2s, which are a little outdated. I think they came out in 2018. Now we're on like the Mavic 3, and they've introduced like 15 other different drones since then, but we're definitely going to be upgrading sometime this year. I'll be excited to get that Mavic 3 Senna and then like an FPV drone and stuff like that too. That'll be exciting.
FPV drone.
Dude, yes.
So the jetpack, the first thing I thought of was like the jetpacks you see where they're like out on the lake using, you know, like the hydro jetpacks. That's the first thing I thought of. The second thing I thought of to your question was like, you know, at some point, is there going to be a point where anybody can use one and just like at that point I would assume you would need a license to just like use it in your own,
I mean,
time.
or you just, you know, punch in an address and it just beep bop boops you right over to grandma's house, right?
Yeah.
As a kid, isn't that what we all wanted? We were just like, all right, I'm tired of it here, Mom. I just want to get out. I want to head over to grandma's house. Beep bop boop. I'm out the door.
Throw it on like a backpack. Yeah.
Tony Stark it out of there.
Tony.
Well, there's also some other regulations in those too, and like some people will call it a certificate, which technically that's like the official name for it. But I mean, at the end of the day, like majority of people aren't going to recognize it as a certificate. No one's going to say that. They're going to call it a license, right? But and then also like the weight regulations, whether it's below 0.55 pounds or up to 55 pounds, and anything over that, they have their own regulations. But we're not here to get necessarily that too technical. But I think we've kind of recapped and talked about like we can get really nerdy
about like
that.
weights and payloads. One of my clients actually, they have a drone that could carry a human being up to, I think it was like 250 pounds in this drone, which they would use to carry medical supplies and deliver them in remote areas overseas to support our troops. And they had to be careful of the fuel to payload ratio. There's kind of a sweet spot in there where you can get the maximum efficiency of that drone. But yeah, and then they would actually kind of like imagine the jetpack that's in the water that's attached. So imagine that being a drone that goes in the air, and then it's tethered using like it would be like a piece of fiber, electric, about as thick as an electric line. And so they would, in the middle of nowhere, they could launch this drone that now acts like an antenna to control this other drone that is delivering blood transfusions, resources.
Oh, dude, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So they've recently worked on implementing, I think this was about a year or two ago, where they started implementing the rule for, or the law, whatever they updated it, for remote ID. So the devices can be third-party installed onto a drone to keep track of that. So then when it is out of line of sight, it is able to still be tracked. And then there's some fine lines and all that as well. But it's going to be interesting too to see how like Amazon and Walmart and, you know, all these different companies, and especially in the medical space, just like what you said, to be able to deliver faster, to be able to deliver accurately and safely equipment. Blood, hearts, packages, things like that too. So that'll be pretty cool to see. Yeah. Some of the cool creative abilities, Devin, you've done a lot with the drone stuff too. Photo and the videos with the drones. Like you can do hyperlapses and do orbitals. You can, we saw a local guy named Big Ray, and he owns Dronacle, and he took a, what's that called? A long exposure shot,
a long exposure photo
of an intersection with under construction, and you can see how the vehicles are turning through, and you can see like their headlights. So it's almost like it wasn't quite at night, but it was pretty cool. So like there's some cool different creative shots you can do, right? I've seen one guy that owns a lawn care company, and he was mowing a lawn, and he put the drone up in there, and you could see it from an angle where he would just zoom back and forth to get and you could see how the lawn changed, and it was like so pleasing. And I think that video got a couple million views, if I'm not mistaken. But these things have some really cool creative abilities.
I always like the simplest function, which would be is like just to follow, right? Like basically,
That
you know,
active track.
the active track, you know, just follows you. So you know, it can be, you know, as you're biking, you know, it's kind of got that over the shoulder, you know, right behind you look, and you can just go right through. I haven't been able to get one to work because I'm not that technically savvy. And to be honest, most of the drones I get are pretty cheap. So I don't feel too bad whenever I drop them into the Allegheny.
They were pretty cool turning on that active track. So
Yeah.
like that's where you can have it follow a vehicle or follow somebody, right? And you can just highlight it on the device and it kind of follows you. Now, of
So
course,
if you have any good recommendations,
okay,
I'm more than open. Maybe
I'm a big fan of DJI drones. I'm a big fan of them, and the software and the abilities and everything that they have. Like the active track on these suckers are sweet. And I think it was on the Air 2S, I think is what it was, that they made a big impact on the active track abilities, which are better than these Mavic 2 Pros that I've got. But so like that's really cool, and on some creative abilities for photo and video. Can you think of anything else, Devin?
No, I'm kind of in agreement with Trav. Like one of my favorites is the follow. We did that the other day with Threaded with the car following.
Oh
the
yeah,
car.
yeah. I put that active track on, and man, that sucker was like
That's cool.
just perfectly backing all the way through, and there was like light poles and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So like kind of gave this real cool depth effect as it pulled back through the street.
Because whenever I was in college, I was doing a recreating a BMW commercial for. I had this idea of like you had to create this new business idea and it had to have this all these things, and I created this commercial. It was like now it would be like basically like keeping radar on the vehicle in front of you, and so you're basically like on them, and so I'm up in this tree trying to get video footage. I tear up with a pair of jeans, you know, and it looked great, but damn, I wish I had a drone.
I ran into a tree, I think the second day in that I had our drone. Ran into it, broke the propeller right off of
I thought
it.
we had it longer than that.
Oh no, it was the second day, man.
I remember that though.
I was so upset. And then there's been a couple other times where it's cool, like to where these nicer drones, they've got the ability to be able to stop before they hit something like a tree or a building or something as well too, which is really nice. But the weight capacity on these, that just varies between all these different kinds of drones. I mean, I've seen these weight capacities on some of these drones be able to carry some really heavy duty photo and video equipment or agricultural equipment too. You know, to be able to spray down agricultural fields with pesticides or things like that too, right?
Or even like lenses, you know, they're able to some lenses like infrared are able to detect if there's going to be, you know, blight to an area, you know, based on insects, and do some high level tracking just, you know, by drone scans of these massive fields. It's really amazing what we're able to accomplish these days. You'd mentioned like this, you know, drones being able to like the anti-collision software, right? And so that made me think of another client of mine in the drone entertainment space, and you probably saw something similar to what they do at the Super Bowl, but they were also on America's Got Talent, where they have these entertainment drones that have these light orbs underneath of them that they are basically dancing in the sky and doing different designs and creations. And they did a drone show during the pandemic for the nurses in New York City. It was beautiful.
It's so cool. I forget what company that is. I know there's at least one company. I'm sure there's more than one, but there's one company I can think of, but I can't remember their name, that does that. And some of the designs that they can make with them is so cool. And
Yep.
I don't know, it's just cool to see. It's like makeshift fireworks, essentially.
Right. Right.
Just make them do what you want.
We've taken some photos of a property that's been developed by a home builder. And so if we could get some bird's eye view, 90-degree straight down angles, then we're able to give them that photography. They can print that out. They can put that into a CAD system. They can do whatever they want. They can sell it, those individual properties. They can line them out and say, okay, well, this is property 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever else, right? Different lots, so like that's another cool deal. Or speaking of real estate, you can definitely, I mean, everyone's familiar with being able to take real estate photos when it comes to the properties for selling homes and buying homes and stuff like that. I'm actually in the market to buy a home, and I really enjoy being able to see those different aerial angles to know what's around that home. What's the neighborhood kind of look like? What's the property look like? How big is that property? It can definitely get a different perspective. And that's what's really cool about being able to use the drones, is to be able to get those different perspectives that you just can't get on the ground.
Right. In instances like that, it's also very important to be certified, because if you're, some kid messing around and trying to spy on your neighbor, nefarious purposes, you want to make sure that being certified is a lot more, it means a lot more than being able to, just have anybody use it.
You mentioned something earlier about insurance.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's insurance companies that'll hire drone pilots to be able to go out and capture, when a home burns down. There was one, oh man, I got to show you this TikTok of where, you remember that drone that we wanted to buy that had the cage that you could fly through those tight areas, right? In those tunnels. So they had one of those, and there was a home that burnt down. And so they were out flying for insurance, flying through those tight areas of the home and doing infrared. And then they were also getting that same information for the fire department before the fire department stepped in, boots on the ground, and actually step in around the home. They flew the drone in there to scan the infrared to kind of see if there's any other hot spots throughout the home that burned down.
That's interesting.
Because that was another reason why we wanted to buy that drone. That drone's $50,000, by the way. So we actually were heavily considering it at one point. We're like, there's only a couple people in the United States from, at the time, this was a couple years ago, that actually had that drone. And we're like, well, if there's a market for it and this drone can provide those unique perspectives that nobody else can provide, like that'd be pretty cool.
Well, one of the main reasons we were thinking about doing that is for like energy plants, right?
Yeah,
and like
that was another one, industrial related.
Because I think on there, and since then, I'm sure some companies have gotten this drone or gotten a drone for their type of inspections. But when it comes to their inspections, I believe they have to have a person go into their industrial piping, and like actually look through and inspect it themselves. And what we were thinking is, if we could get this drone and hopefully let it pay for itself, but at the same time, the main reason being keep someone safe from having to go inside this, what could be a dangerous situation, and inspect it probably maybe even more accurate than they could themselves. That was the idea behind it. So
what's the Mavic drone, the DJI drone that has all the emergency equipment? Do you remember what that's called? I'll find out here in just a second. Oh man,
I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
You don't? They have the emergency one, DJI. It's for police, medical, and fire. I'm pretty sure I can find it in here. It's not the Matrice. It's another one. They have a whole DJI Enterprise. That's what it was. It's that drone. They have a whole bunch of abilities for 32x digital zoom, M2EA supports, for natural disasters and things like that. It's got better rotors, so it can fly in heavier conditions. the different attachments you can put on here. You can put on speakers. There's a modular speaker you can put on it. So you can connect that to your controller and you could speak to people and you could say, help is on the way or whatever it is right now and let people know.
Right. Yeah.
And I think in their introductory video, like in their video where they kind of announce the drone's abilities, they used where somebody is like in a river that's flooded, right? And they're hanging onto a tree and they're able to use the speaker and then the infrared ability to be able to find those people. So like maybe it's in the dark, maybe it's 2:00 in the morning. They're using the infrared ability that it has on the camera. And then they've got the module speaker on top of it that's attached. And so then they're able to find the people.
Like avalanche rescue. It's big for avalanche rescue. Especially out west, even whenever you get into the Netherlands and such, right? You got the.
And then they have like the additional, they have the Matrice 300 RTK that has additional payload abilities. And then you can upgrade with that Zenmoose, however you say it. I can't pronounce it right. The camera that gets like, again, further out than the 32x zoom, I think go up to like 64 or something crazy. It can zoom in pretty well. Have you ever taken a photo from like 300 or 400 feet up in the air and then zoomed in and found somebody's license plate from like, I don't know, 800 feet away?
Yeah.
That's nuts. Like our drones don't even have zoom and we can do that in Lightroom. Just zoom in and find it. You ever done that?
No.
Oh yeah. It's cool. I've gotten curious. I've been like, how close, what details can I find from how far away? Like I bet you're
familiar with the Tiger Shark program the military used. One of my clients, they developed that program. They developed the drones, some of them at the end, as well as the seats that they, how they operate the drones, from basically a RC car and a keyboard and a screen to basically a pilot seat with fully functional feet rudders and the whole 9 yards. Increase their productivity by I think like 2 hours.
Wow.
Then like the lens on those drones was like Braden was saying, crazy. Except these drones are flying at 600-800 feet. Which and then also equipped with infrared and some of the other crazy technologies. If you see some of them on, pull them up on YouTube.
Yeah. There was like going back to some of the agricultural stuff. There was this case study by DJI where they boosted the rice field yield by 8% with 20% less fertilizer using the DJI multispectral drone, and that was a pretty cool study that I saw not too long ago. Where they took that drone and they were able to provide the attachments and things like that. So we're talking about earlier with like using those drones to be able to spray those agricultural fields. They did that with fertilizer. And so then that, like, imagine how much money that saved in gas and like 80,000, 6-figure pieces of equipment to be able to manually haul those across acres of fields. Right.
I mean, the magic is all in the software and a lot of these, being able to collect and distribute data, even with the Verge Aero, the entertainment drones. They have the technology in the back end. It was all custom built because they didn't have anything that could make them dance and be able to get go from design to functionality so quickly. So it's a lot of it's in the technology. So if you don't always have to be an engineer, if you got a knack in the tech field and find someone that find the yin to your yang, one's a little country, the other one's a little rock and roll, and put together your own drone thing.
They do. Speaking of like construction and engineers, you can. They do have. I think it's the Zenmoose L1. That's one of their newest, DJI's newest technologies, to where their inspection level is insane. So they can get let me see if I can find out this specific information, but they use this sometimes in job sites to be able to measure how much dirt there is or how much gravel or whatever it is. And so they take that drone and they can fly it around that pile. And then they use the Lidar technology to be able to measure all of that. And then they can give you how much square foot, pounds per whatever, and all sorts of incredible data that can be provided to engineers or project managers to be like, okay, well, it looks like we're short blah and blah for this project. We need to order some more dirt by this date or more gravel or whatever it is. And then you can also detect the heights and things like that too. Did you ever fly the drone and do that with ours on this one real estate project where you could see in the app all the different specs that it scanned and the heights and the widths and where it actually scanned the grass? Right? Our drones did without the Lidar technology. The data we got from that was stupid. Like we could see in the app where the ground was more wet or more moist or whatever than the other areas of the yard. And you could see like, okay, well, there's a moisture issue over here. So like even for guys that do drainage projects, right, to try to move irrigation and water across property, right, across somebody's home, they could essentially use a drone, fly it around a property, let it scan and do its thing, and then they could come in and they go, oh wow, it looks like that this area over here is flooded, and it's your yard or your plants or whatever it is are not getting the water that it needs. Then they can come in and adjust the drainage or the irrigation however they need to.
Flooding. People have, like you said, sewage issues and burst pipes, and being able just to tell where the source is, not necessarily be like, oh, I think it's roundabouts here. So finding that technology is pretty sweet.
We were working with a company that was doing the readings for trying to figure out. I think they were doing excavating on a location, and I think they were doing it manually without a drone. And I think we had mentioned doing it with the drone, but we were told that the manual way to do it was more accurate than doing it with the drone. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I'm trying to find that app real quick that we were using.
I don't know if that's still
so cool.
and still a case. I don't know if you've had any instances like that where
what was the reasoning behind their theory?
Just the fact that the manual way to do it would get it to a T compared to their reasoning was that if it was with a drone, that even being a couple centimeters off could jeopardize the grading that they were doing on the site.
So they were saying that like 0.2 of an inch across 40 acres could cost them $30,000.
Right.
And labor fees and moving the dirt, right? Like you think you're like, okay, you're just moving dirt, whatever. Like what if you're off that 0.2 of an inch? Well, every bit of that data goes all the way back to the ground floor, right? So if you're off that much, then it goes all the way back through the engineering as well, and then back to how the drone is able to accurately scan that. So again, that goes back to like, yeah, you can use these drones, these Mavic 2 Pros that came out 2018 and 2019. Like the cameras are still really good when it comes to the creative side, but when it comes to the more of the technical surveying, creating the topography or mapping and things like that, like you definitely need the Lidar part, because if that's another thing too. Like that comes back as a liability as a pilot. If I go out there and I fly that and then I cost my client $30,000 to $80,000, well, guess who they're coming after? Me, right? You don't think I didn't charge them $30,000 to go out there? This isn't a big pot. This isn't a big deal for me, right? So they're more than likely going to have to place a change order with their client, and then they're coming after me for the money, and I'm not going to supply them with a $30,000 difference. Either that or I'm going to lose a client, or it's a potential lawsuit. Right. So like at that point, we're like, okay, if we're going to get into the Lidar part or topography and scanning all that, providing that sort of data to engineers, we really have to make sure that, we have something that's like the DJI L1, the lidar scanner and to be able to use like the matrice to be able to handle that and fly over acres. And that's the other thing too, like logistically, like if you're trying to get that kind of data and get into that industry, you have to have the batteries. Those batteries, like we have 6 of these. Each one of them is $150 a pop.
Is there a difference in these batteries and like the lifespan on that type of drone? Because these are like you said, these are like 20, 25 minutes worth. And I would assume you may not need it, but I would assume you would need more time than that, especially if it's mapping out a larger area.
I mean, a lot of those are also fuel based. So
fueled by like
fuel, yeah, like
gas.
Yeah, some of them like can be, but like for like DJI,
gas powered drones.
DJI, they've got one drone on here that they use for a lot of cinematography and film production. If I can find out which one that was, but that one's really cool. Like those batteries, they're of course they're larger, and I think they stack 2 on the drone. I can't remember. I'm gonna find out which drone it was, but that one you can fly for like I think it's around 45 to 60 minutes, and of course all that time in the air, like that matters too. How hard are you flying the drone? If you're flying, at max speed at anywhere between 35 or 45 miles an hour, like that battery's gonna be you're gonna lose 10 minutes on it easy. Our drones only go 25 minutes. 20 to 25 minutes. And so like we'll go through 2 or 3 batteries on a job pretty easily.
Yeah.
Where is that one? It's very exciting because this was the other drone. This was one that we were talking about with there it is. Yeah, it's the Inspire drone, the Inspire 2. Oh, it's so beautiful. That's where I was telling you, double stacks on the batteries. And so it can go up to 58 miles an hour. So it can keep up with some of those shots where there's cars involved.
These get up to 30, 20 to 30.
I think it's close to 30 or 35, if I remember right. And then these drones, they shoot in the 6K Cinema DNG with 5.2K Apple ProRes. And it's fancy. But again, we had that same conversation going back to creative. We had that same conversation. We've been going back and forth, and I've been arguing this with like the production people. If you're going cinematic and you're creating films, okay, you gotta have that standard because you can't use And I don't know. There's some videos.
Are you referring to resolution, 4K, 5K,
right? And then being able to have the color grading ability. There's some. Like it could be one of the Fast and Furious ones. I don't remember, but it was one of the big movies that they used a really, really cheap drone and nobody could tell. Nobody knew. It was something, there was a whole conversation in the drone industry, and I was following it for a short time when it was happening. It was all a big deal. And they were like, I can't believe that they used, it was like the Mavic 1 or something lower than that. It was like a cheap GoPro. They've used GoPros, in some of these action movies, and you can't tell. Like some of these, when it's edited, GoPros, right, it goes into the right place. You can't tell. So on the creative side, you got a little bit more flexibility than you do if you're going more professionally in like Lidar and stuff like that. Like there's definitely not enough room for.
And you can even mod out the lenses on GoPros.
I've seen that too.
I did that once upon a time. It took me a whole day, but I got it done.
What was that story about the America's Got Talent thing? What was that?
Yeah, that was Verge Aero. That was the entertainment drones with the orbs underneath of them. So my part in it, small part, was the decal that's on the back of them is my design. What they wanted to use some design learning and implemented into it so people knew what the different flashes meant, because it was just like an indicator light and one button. And so if it was slow flashing, it was on standby. And if it was fast, so if I had 2 squares or 2 rectangles and then 3 circles. So that was the flash. That meant it was active, which is pretty cool. So I got to, help them design, how whoever's operating the drones uses the drones.
Yeah. Smart.
And then they, with the America's Got Talent, they had, I think, 250 drones that they surrounded Terry Crews with. And Terry Crews is like in this cage. And then as they go up, I mean, it just looks amazing.
Pull it up.
I really wish I was, where Terry Crews was, being able to see all those drones. And
who is the company again? Aero.
Verge Aero.
Verge Aero.
ERGEAERO.
AGT's Terry Crews talks about. No, that's not it. You sent the video, didn't you?
Yeah, it's in that email.
Compass drones, arrows, but as long as you use drones for basements. Here's the other one, I think. Let me just go ahead and pull. I think I can copy this and move this over to my Mac, and then we can pull it up here on the screen. Whoop. We're gonna copy and paste. I don't know if this is going to be it. Oh, this was the ambulance drone video that you sent. That's a different one. Let me see if it's this one then.
Are you able to show it?
Well, yeah.
Once you find it?
I could show it on here, yeah. Oh, did you pull it up?
I got it for you.
Hey. Maybe this one's it.
There, I just popped it in the chat.
Oh, nice. There's a chat in here too. I'm loving this app so far. I think I can pause this. All right, let's do this. Let's screen share. And then we're going to screen share this tab here. Here we go. But I don't think that I can pull the audio from it.
You have it muted.
Yeah, I know. It's just going to play on the computer though.
It is.
Yeah. So it looks like they have quite the crew setup too. Oh yeah, this is the light one. This is what you're talking about earlier.
Yep.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to use this in our show notes. I haven't seen this to where they do this with America's Got Talent. But if you guys are wanting to watch this video, we're going to have this up on our YouTube channel. You can look at, go to YouTube. You can look us up on Blue Studio or Braden Crews, and then you'll be able to find both YouTube channels. We'll have the YouTube video up on both of them as well. Or you can look at the link in this, or if you're in the show notes, if you look at the bottom, you're going to be able to find the YouTube link to be able to watch what we're talking about, where Verge Aero delivers a gorgeous drone shows at the America's Got Talent in 2022. So that's pretty cool.
Did they set? Because I know they're usually in a arena, or I don't know where they hold the AGT, but
I believe this is at an airport.
That's pretty cool.
Oh,
yeah,
makes sense.
I wonder how much authorization they had to go through to get that, huh?
Yeah,
three months in advance.
I remember when they were starting out, and they would have to get all this clearance to do these things.
Plan it.
Right.
Have you seen that one video that just went viral about a year and a half ago or something like that, to where the guy took the drone from the outside as an FPV drone and went through the bowling alley?
No, I
Devin, you saw it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I was telling somebody about that the other day. It was Inkwell.
Oh yeah.
We were talking about those. One of their employees we mentioned. We were just talking about FPV drones in general, and yeah, this video. So they had and I think this is one where they just had like a drone and they put a GoPro on it, because of if they hit something or anything, that was kind of minimal, tiny. And you know it wasn't going to affect anything in the bowling alley or.
So they started from outside and then they flew indoors through the front door, and there was probably 24 people in this video.
Mm-hmm.
And the drone probably comes in within a couple feet of these people multiple times. It flies down the bowling lane through the pins and comes out through the back and then goes through like the bar area and goes through the gaming area and then comes back around through and does this whole show. And then the NFL did the same thing too. They flew through their whole production set with an FPV drone. And then they used After Effects and post-production to give certain editing effects to they pulled up like old school players cards a couple times in that video. So like, like the actual player, like football or basketball or baseball player cards, right? Yeah. They pulled those up kind of like
trading cards, right?
Animate. Yeah, trading cards. There we go. Yeah, so they like animated those in the video, and like that was pretty cool. The whole since those two kind of happened, it was really the bowling alley has set off the whole FPV thing. I think to a lot more people, just because it was a very creative way to be able to use the drones to show off the
atmosphere,
bowling alley.
The environment. And I think so. I had two things: the bowling alley one, and really like almost any FPV style one that they do, where they fly it through things going on, people around. It's really cool to see. I've only seen some BTS of one shoot where the way they choreograph it, they have one guy as the remote pilot, and they have one guy who's basically like watching him, making sure like, he's not going to run into anybody, because you have to be within range of the drone. So they're actually like in the video moving him around to make sure he's in range at times. And then like they also choreograph with the people around to like do certain things when the drone is coming in their direction. So like in the bowling alley video, I know that, I don't know how they did the voice. I assume they did the voices and stuff after. You would have
because
to,
like as the drone flew by people, you could hear their conversation.
It would be like them having conversation, the bowling ball rolling
hear
down,
them laughing and talking and stuff like.
Super.
Or you got someone running behind it with a boom mic.
Yeah, but like there's some points where that drone turned around really quick and maneuvered quick. So either I don't imagine they had somebody following. I imagine that they had a wireless mic. I think that they just like lav mic'd it up or something.
They could have lav mic'd it.
And then that's how that when the drone flew by, they were able to capture a quick glimpse of somebody going, "Hey,
yeah,
what are you doing?"
That's true. I didn't even think
about
that.
Like it kind of came in and out as the drone flew by people, and it wasn't really fast either. So that drone was probably going, I don't know, 5 miles an hour, maybe 10 tops. Like, it felt quick too. And also I bet that drone was flying closer to 5, and then it was just sped up in post. Yeah. To kind of give it that fast paced vibe.
I think some of the first drone videos I saw on YouTube were these kids they were flying drones through their HVAC system in their house. Zipping. I'm just like,
see, like some of this stuff I want to get involved in.
Just watching it, like I felt like I was in Star Wars, like jet racers.
Our brother Christian, he's also a drone pilot as well. He's licensed, and he's better on the sticks than I think. Devin and I are both, but I think Christian. I think he's got more guts to fly in the tighter areas.
I've had to get some guts.
Yeah, because
I used to be timid.
Like we're talking like these drones. They may have like a 12 to 16 inch wingspan, right? And we're talking like a less than 3 foot gap, and then you got to fly through that to get a good shot, a good creative shot. Because like you can't really fit through that, and you can't move through an aisle is really what it was. Like there's some shots like that, and that's again where it comes like drones. They don't have to just be aerial. We don't have to fly 400 feet in the air all the time. We can fly these drones indoors. We can fly. I think the NFL actually had a drone fly, I saw that.
The NFL video.
Was it on?
You're referring to that again?
Or was it a college? It was a college or NFL football game. Either way, it was a football game, and there was a miniature drone, a small drone. It could have been a mini, something like that, flying around the field, around the whole facility. And I was like, I wonder how they got away with that. Because, and my only guess is one, they had approval from facilities, right, and whatever else. But then the drone also weighed less than 0.55 pounds, right, weighed less than half a pound. So therefore, they didn't have to follow certain guidelines. Because if it was over that half a pound limit, then they wouldn't have been able to fly that the way that they did inside of with all those people. So you're not supposed to fly over a crowd step one. And then there's some new rules and regulations with that, which I would encourage everyone to definitely follow up and check the FAA website for everything that we're saying today. I am not talking on behalf of FAA, neither is anyone else here. So do make sure that you do your own research. This is merely just for conversation. That's my disclaimer. Thank you so much. So bottom line, but there's some really cool stuff, but I have seen some people fly and I'm like, how did you get away with that? If you got away with it, I'm shocked that you didn't get caught. And if you got away with it and you're not getting caught, I want to know, because I want to be able to do some stuff like that. Because there's a lot of opportunities. Like, dude, the University of Tulsa, this is cool. They want to hire us. They bought a blimp. They want to hire us to fly a blimp. They don't trust. They didn't even take it out of the box. They called us and they're like, "Hey, we bought a blimp. Will you guys come look at it? We don't want to take it out of the box." And this is your old school blimp. Like you fill it up with helium and you have like a 90s controller with all these buttons and knobs, and we're not 100% confident that we can fly it until we actually like test it and give it see how it works and stuff. But then they're also within a classification of an airspace to where we have to get authorization to fly, and so, which isn't a big deal because we're licensed pilots. For those of you who want to argue with me on whether it's certificate pilot, no one wants to say that.
Oh, did you see that comment?
Yeah, I saw that comment on TikTok. We're live on TikTok right now.
We
so
had
like
a comment mentioning that real pilots will call it a certificate versus a license, because a license can expire versus a certificate.
Yeah. And so our certificates don't expire. I don't know if you knew that either. A lot of people don't know that. You're just required to maintain your knowledge on it.
This out, I'm not going to say this is my certificate. I'm going to say it's my license.
Yeah. I mean, and everyone.
But I get the concept.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. They're like, whatever. So anyways, like, so we're going to try to figure out how to fly that blimp, because that'd just be freaking cool, right? Fly a blimp around, but we have to figure out like how all that works, and like how often they want us to fly it, and what games, and is there any regulations behind that? Because the last thing I want is the FAA calling me being like, you guys aren't supposed to be doing that. And I also don't want the university getting in trouble either. So I with this drone stuff, I always like err on the side of caution, right? And that's the terminology for it. Always try to play it.
Err on the side of caution and get as much approval. Get the approval necessary.
So this is some cool stuff that we carry around with us when we fly. We have like some cheat sheets on photo and video. So if we're like,
shout out Christian.
Shout out.
Christian created those
to our daytime and nighttime for photo and video. We have a letter here. So if someone wants to come up to us while we're flying in the air and they're like, Susan wants to come up and she goes, "You guys aren't allowed to fly here. You not need to put that drone down, and that's illegal." Give them this, tell them to shut up and wait. I said, hey, I can't talk to you while my drone's in the air, because if I can't keep an eye on it, then I can get in trouble with the FAA. Right. So, I'll have a conversation with you when I'm done with my job.
When I have it safely landed and I can hold a conversation without being distracted.
That's your pause button.
Yeah, that's my pretty much. Button. And then we have a drone checklist too. So again, like, err on the side of caution and try to make sure that we're thorough in all of our missions. We check to make sure that we have authorization in our airspace. We make sure that our flight sheet is out in our presentable location like this. So making sure we got something like our pause button sheet,
which I believe we got that from, we watched that on we got YouTube certified with basically on some of this. Yeah. Which we got this idea from a guy online who will actually put this on the front of his car for someone to say, really, where he would just be like, "Hey, look at my windshield while I'm doing this, and I'll talk to you in a second," compared to being like trying to argue with somebody while you're flying. But
and then also checking some drone settings. Like, we want to make sure that before our drone takes off that we have our home point location set, and then we take off like within 10 feet, hold it there, so then it can actually know where the specific point. Our drones will actually, if we hit the home button, it'll come right back to where it took off automatically by itself. I could run it to the end of its battery, for some of you guys who don't know that. And then we check like weather reports. So technically, if the case does happen to where the FAA does give me a call, they will ask, "Hey, did you check your precautionary measures? Like, did you check your weather? Did you fly too high, fly too whatever? Did you cross this path? Like, did you run over people? Like, did you do this? Did you do that?" And so part of that checklist here is about, weather is important too. Check aerial surroundings. One of the times that second day that I told you that I flew the drone into a tree, I went straight up. Straight up into the tree. I looked around and I know, right? I looked up and people are like, "You're an idiot." I'm like, "Well, thanks. That was a couple of years ago. I'm no longer an idiot." You only do things once, hopefully. So, I haven't flown into a tree since then. One and done.
We're 2 years. We need to have like a have like an ongoing like 2 years since incident thing.
Oh yeah, safety ratings, right? Yeah, kind of like what
2.5 years
TPS
since our
says.
last incident. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let's order a plaque like that and put that up, and then we'll keep track of it. That's hilarious. But checking aerial surroundings too. So like you're supposed to do checkpoints and draw a whole box. You go up, right, down, left, and kind of draw a circle. I'm sorry. It's not a circle or box. It's not really a square because it's more of like you go out wide left, out wide right, close in right, and then close in left as well, because like you don't need to look as far out. So anyways, whatever, too technical. Anyways, check your surroundings. And then we have our license sheet, or our insurance sheet, certificate of liability insurance. So then if the case, where something does happen, it's like, hey, here's, our insurance. I don't know, if it falls and hits somebody, right? And then police are there and they're like trying to gather the reports. Like, again, want to cover our bases, Without a reasonable doubt, we are authorized and approved, and we are safe in everything that we do. Would you agree?
Definitely. Yeah.
100%. I don't have that 100%. Button. I've got a sound effect button where one of my buddies, he says that he's like 100%, and I'll play that all the time when he's on here.
Just hit that button. Wah, wah.
Yeah, I got one of those too. Well, did you feel like that? I feel like that we hit majority of our bullet points for today, like jobs and drones.
So I have a question for you guys. You guys fly private jets as well, or is it just drones? Or
not yet.
Not yet.
We don't have that kind of pilot license.
Yeah, just drones.
Just drones.
Yeah. Is there how is that? Do you need? I mean, since you have a pilot's license, does that can you fly private jets?
It's kind of like having a driver's license, but in order to drive a motorcycle, you have to have an M endorsement. And in order to have an M endorsement, you have to have a written you have to have a written test, and then actually go and have an exam and practice that, and have someone follow you around on a motorcycle and show that you can actually ride the motorcycle. So same thing with like these other different classifications. So like, there's commercial pilot, there's private, and then there's a handful of other different types of classes that you can add to your license. So like if we wanted to fly a private jet, right? Like we would have to go, I think it's 160 hours or 80 hours or something like that of flight time. And then we'd have to go retest for that particular classification. But yeah.
So how many hours, what did the certification process look like for you if somebody wanted to go get a pilot's license?
And the drone for a remote pilot certificate, part 107, we crammed for 2 weeks, listened to podcasts, watched some videos, pulled out some study guides, took some practice tests, and then went to a testing center, paid $175 to test. The test was fairly easy. A lot of the knowledge I feel like is pretty fair. They do require you to understand aeronautics, to be able to understand the weather reports, and a lot of different stuff that like you don't really need to know as a remote pilot flying a UAS, but some of that stuff is nice to know. Is like, if we decide to start flying drones that aren't these easy to fly DJI drones, then yeah, that other knowledge is going to come into place. But that was pretty much it. You just have to pass with like a C or higher. Basically, it's I think it's like 100 questionnaire. Fairly easy. Some of those questions are trick questions. Yeah. You got to understand METAR reports. So like you got to be able to break down. If I could show you one. Let me see if I can pull it.
It seems very daunting at first, and it kind of is, but it's just something that you dive into, you learn, you kind of understand the more you figure out.
No, that's not it. I need to go back. Hold on, I'll show you one because
What
it's
kind
pretty
of
cool.
reports are they?
They're called METAR, METAR. So, like for example, this is what a METAR report looks like. And so, like in this area, you have to break down that, like, okay, well, there's a Z at the end of this. You can't see it very well, but there's a Z at the end of this. So the number is 190, 154. So Z stands for Zulu. So I know that is on the date, time, and year. And then we have KT, which stands for knots. So this is telling me that at 230 degrees, there's 5 knots of wind, and in the direction of 230 degrees. So if you look at a circle, north is 0 and 360, and then east is 90, and then west is 270. Right? Yeah, 270, and then south is 180. So 230 would be somewhere southwest, right? So southwest at 5 knots. And then you have to understand that, like,
not from southwest.
Correct. Yeah. And then you have to see that, like, 10 SM is statute miles. So that's your visibility. So this tells me that the wind is going southwest at 5 knots, and I can see for 10 statute miles, which means that there's nothing in the way. That's how far that I can see. And CLR stands for clear. So the skies are clear. And then there's a bunch of other things in here. Like, it could tell me if it's overcast clouds, if it's scattering rains, if there's broken clouds, like different kinds of sky conditions and things like that you have to be able to understand. So, like, before you take off, you're supposed to technically, if you were to be like an actual, like, non-remote pilot and you were to fly an actual plane, then this kind of stuff is what you have to monitor before you have to take off. And so, like, even though that you've got this remote pilot certificate, they still want you to know all that. And they want you to know, like, the angle of attack. At what angle and at what speed can you take off? So, like, but before the thing just falls out of the sky or can't take off the ground, right? What was else? There's some other things. Oh man, dude, the maps. What are the maps called? I'm going blank right now. But the maps, you got to be able to understand the mapping and be able to find, like, in the question, it'll tell you in zone 4, how high, what's the height of the tallest tower? So you have to go to the report. Yeah, sorry, you have to go to the map and you have to look at zone 4, the topographical map. Yeah. And then, hold on, let me pull it up real quick. What would I look up?
Topographical.
No. Oh man, I'm totally going blank right now.
Doing math problems.
So this is
if Johnny leaves Houston at 5 o'clock and it takes him 3 hours. What's the name of the apple?
Doing those. No, but yeah. So you got to look. You got to look at maps like this, right? And you got to be able to read it and determine where the airport is, and be able to understand. Hey, if a plane is coming in this direction, where is he? Where exactly is he in the on the airport map? And you got to be able to be like, okay, well, he's 230 degrees southwest of and 4 miles north of this area of the map of where the runway is. Like, little tricky things like that. So long as you just can decipher the terminology and the numbers, the rest of it's golden. It's pretty easy. You just, like, again, it's just kind of going back to college days and high school days to where you're like,
well, once you flex that muscle enough, you're going to get good at it, right?
Yeah.
You do it over and over, you get practice, makes better.
It's just like riding a bike.
But once you pass that test, once you have your license, it really is very simple after that. It just comes down to, what's the app that we use?
The DJI app?
No. It's not.
It's on my phone. It used to be called Kitty Hawk, but now it's called Aloft. Aloft is really cool. So, like, in this app, it's called Air Control. So it went from Kitty Hawk to to aloft.
So in here, you can put in your license information, and it makes it real simple to say, where's your location? You put in the location where you're shooting at. If you're shooting within A, B.
Yeah. So like this is what the air control app looks like. And so like within here, you can see where you can and cannot fly, if there's any recommendations or things you should be aware of. So like, hey, there's a park here. There's a medical center. You need to know if there's a medical center nearby because you may run into a helicopter. Like, I think I came in within 150 to 100 feet.
Class elevations, or is that specifically
right? So that's what I was going to say.
All that data,
so you can see on the map, like say you want to shoot within a Class D zone, then you would definitely need that 24-hour permission to schedule it out. You can put in how much time you're going to shoot for, at what time, and what day you're going to shoot at, and then from there it's just you just get a yes or a no basically from it. If you do it within 24 hours, you have to do it manually, and you can do that. It just takes a little more time on site. But if you do it 24 hours, usually, unless you're within a higher airspace zone, then you're good to go.
Like for example, this is the city of Tulsa. You know, over here we have our airspace, the big purple circle that you see, that's the international airport. But then we also have another airport that's a little bit smaller, which is a different type of class airspace. So if I click on this, it's going to tell me that my class airspace over here is a Class D airspace, while my international airport class airspace is, I think, G, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, C. Yeah, Class C airspace. Right. So it's going to tell me that if I want to fly over here in this area, it's going to tell me that there's like, hey, you have Tulsa International Airport Class C, so you can't fly higher than 400 feet. Well, duh, you can by license, but yeah, so good to know. And then you have a stadium, you have a security, you have St. John, you have Hillcrest. You have the weather. So right now it's currently 46 degrees and clear, 11 miles an hour wind from the north, gust at 21 miles an hour, 10 stats 2 miles, 47% humidity, 4% cloud cover at 4,200 feet above ground level. The KP index is 0.3, which is also a really good thing too. Like if the KP index is too high, then you're going to be affected by your transmission signal between your controller like this and your drone. So if that's too high, the magnetic interference is going to be an issue, and so you won't be able to fly as well or fly as far. And then same thing with your GPS signal. Like if you're in the middle of nowhere in Arizona, then that could be an issue with flying your drone. You need to be aware of that kind of stuff. The FAA keeps track of all this. So all this data is tracked inside of these DJI drones when you fly them. A lot of it is. Maybe not to this intensive degree for weather-related stuff, but everything that I fly and everything that Devin flies is separately tracked and logged. So like that's another reason why we have 2 drones and 2 different controllers, is because if he needs to fly without me, I don't want him flying under my account. If he breaks a rule, that's going to come back on me. And then I've got to prove that he was flying.
I mean, do you think you're
has that happened? No.
Fingerprint your drone handle? You think that's going to, some biometrics are going to be involved?
You to like use your face to unlock it like an iPhone, like hold it up your face.
Right.
No, I don't think they'll do that. But like these drones too. Whenever you have a drone, not only do you have to have your remote pilot certificate. I'm still going to make fun of that guy. Not only just your certificate, but you also have to have on the drones a serial number that's registered to the drone. And you have to maintain that registration with that drone. I think it expires every 36 months. So like, I'm pretty sure that next year I'll have to renew those certificates for the drones, because they'll have that with the FAA and a serial number assigned to the drone. So it's like I have to actually have that sticker on there. These people, like a lot of people don't know about this little ins and outs stuff. And it's better to play safe than sorry. And if you guys go to YouTube and you look up FAA drone
license test.
No, not license test. FAA drone like
Regulations.
in trouble or something like that, like ticket or fee or fine. Yeah, FAA drone fine. Look that up in YouTube and watch some of the stories that these guys have where they get $183,000 fines because they flew in an international, not international, in a federally regulated park, right? On federal land. They took off there and then they flew around and they violated this multiple times. Now, the FAA says that their number one rule, if someone violates a law, that they're supposed to educate first. So they always give you a slap on the wrist, is what I've heard. And then they come back around. If you do it 2 or 3 more times, then they come back and they'll give you a fine. But those fines, they can be 6 figures. And so I'm like, I'll make sure I keep up to date on knowing where I can and cannot fly and have my stuff, my ducks in a row, because I'm not here to try to solve, try to have problems, right?
Right.
Long story short.
Don't risk it for the biscuit.
Don't risk it for the biscuit.
You don't have to. And it doesn't seem.
Yeah.
If you're eerie, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to always go full send.
Yeah, that's right.
Go
go half send or just wait
3/4 send
to full send.
3/4 send.
Yeah, say that to someone. You're like, dude, just send it. Yeah, dude, I'll 3/4 send it, dude. Hilarious. All right,
33%.
Any final thoughts for you guys? My final thoughts is, again, I'll come back just making sure that everyone do some of your research and making sure that you have your certificate and insurance, and you just stay up on the regulations and have some friends that are in the space that keep up with their stuff as well.
Practice safe droning.
Yeah.
Practice safe droning. Know the rules.
Yeah.
Full send when you feel like it, but be eerie. Err on the side of caution.
I've lost a few drones full sending it, so.
That's cool. Well, Devin and Travis.
What were you going to say, Trav?
Yeah, if you're interested in more drone opportunities, if you're a drone operator, message me, Travis@trav.media. I have a network of drone operators all over the U.S. Love to hear from you, and kudos to these fine gentlemen for bringing me on and jamming out.
Okay, real quickly, what does that look like? If someone were to get in contact with you, wanting to get information, work with you, what does that real quickly, what does that look like? Yeah,
so depending on what you're looking for in whether you're a drone operator or you're in technology, we're looking for I can introduce you to a handful of different people, or even having if you send me some footage and I can put you through my networks. And we're also looking for like insurance, people who can just fly point A to point B for insurance, inspections, those types of things. So Trav Media is evolving into some drone areas to support other objectives. So shoot me an email, Travis@trav.media. Love to get you connected. And yeah.
Sweet.
That'd be cool. I thought it'd be cool to like have that drone business going to where we would have some dronographers that would just go fly across the country doing all sorts of different jobs. And we'd have an arsenal of drones that could just about do whatever we need them to do. I think that would be cool. But that sounds like what you're kind of doing. Pretty close. Yeah. All right.
It's fun. I do. I'm all over the U.S. and wearing many different hats. So, and within those many different hats, many of those people fly drones and have, again, I'm no pilot. I'm never going to claim to be a pilot, but I know pilots. So, it's just kind of by happenstance. I tend to get into a lot of these spaces to, get some drone operators some work and support some different industries.
You're like the coach.
That's right.
You don't have to play the game. You just have the players.
The connector. Nice. I'm the connector. Right?
I like that.
So,
well, Devin and Travis, I appreciate you guys being on today with this is a whole discussion of jobs and drones. We talked about quite a bit. If you guys have any questions or want to reach out, let me know. My email is braden@marketingsooner.com. And anytime that we do these podcasts, we go live on the Sooner CEO TikTok. So go follow me there and you'll be involved live on some of these conversations. Depending on what you guys say on that TikTok, I will respond to. If it's just some gibberish, I'm probably not going to respond to that live here on the podcast. But if you got some live Q&A questions, I'll be happy to answer those. Devin, Travis, again, thank you so much for joining me. And we'll see you guys next time.
Peace.